Hi guys, welcome to CakeWalk Cambridge. So today we are going to start with Chapter 1, Characteristics and Classification of Living Organisms. It is an easy chapter because the main thing that you need to be good at is learning your stuff. You need to know facts and details. So that's all you really need to do. So it's not really a problem. But the main dilemma when it comes to this chapter is remembering what you've learned and putting down your facts in the right positions. Okay, because it seems easy, but it's very easy to forget. Take it from me. So let's begin. Okay, so 1.1, we're going to go with the syllabus of IGCSE 2021. What you need to know. You need to be able to define movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, nutrition. So you've probably done all these 7 terms before in probably grade 5 above if you've been doing Cambridge IGCSE all these years. And if not, it's not a big deal. You can still learn it now. It's very easy and the terms speak for themselves really. You just need to know keywords that I have highlighted so you will know how many marks they usually come for in exams. So let's begin. Okay, so movement. Okay, so if I move my hand, so when I'm doing this action, I'm basically moving my hand. So movement is the action by an organism or part of an organism that causes a change in position or place. So if I move, that's the whole organism moving, but if my hand moves, it's part of an organism moving. And when my hand is like this, opposing to when my hand is like this, there's a change in its location. So that's why it causes a change in position or place. So usually this question, define movement, comes for a mark. If you're lucky, you may get it for 2 marks, and that's when you will definitely have to mention action by an organism or part of an organism causing a change in position or place. There are 2 parts to this question that essentially have to be answered. Okay, you also get a lot of this in MCQs where they indirectly ask you the definition. So they will probably show you a plant first straight and then its flower tilted towards the sun, a sunflower. And when they ask you that question, they will be like, what life processes does this picture portray? So the fact that the flower has turned is movement itself. So you get your mark there. And usually they like club 2 life processes together. So the second life process would be sensitivity, which we will learn later today and also in another chapter later. So that is one. The second one is the Venus flytrap, which is also easy when its petals close to capture insects that rest on it. And the third is fairly easy. It's when an animal pounces on prey. These questions are rather direct, but you need to read the question properly and you need to mark it correctly in your answer sheet for the MCQ. And also, these 3 are the most common ones asked, so I thought I'll include them. Just remember them and apply your knowledge. Don't just mug it all up. Okay, so that was movement. The second is respiration, which is a huge concept in biology. So respiration is important and this definition also comes in chemistry. So I will tell you what to include where. So respiration is the term used to describe chemical reactions in cells that break down nutrient molecules to release energy for metabolism. Okay, so this sounds complicated because usually people confuse respiring with breathing, like, inhaling and exhaling, but respiration is different. So basically, there are chemical reactions in your cells that break. So the nutrient molecules that are referred to here are glucose molecules. That is C6H12O6. You need to know the formula of glucose. Okay. So these chemical reactions break down glucose to release carbon dioxide and water. But the primary goal is to release energy. So that is the main product that is released. So your equation for that is glucose plus oxygen gives you carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. You don't have to include energy in your answer, but if you do, it's not a problem at all. Okay, so when I said the equation glucose plus oxygen gives carbon dioxide plus water, that is aerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration is in the presence of oxygen and it usually happens in body cells, like it happens in mitochondria. Mitochondria are small oval shaped cells, slipper shaped cells that respire aerobically and produce energy in the form of ATP. You do not need to know the full form of ATP, so don't worry. If you mention it, you get a mark. It's as simple as that. Also, when you are defining the term respiration, this easily can come for 3 marks, usually 2 marks. But you need to know chemical reactions in cells, break down nutrient molecules, and release energy for metabolism. So in the core syllabus, for metabolism is not included in the definition, but it is included in the extended syllabus. So it would be nice if you remember it and put it down because it showcases your knowledge as well as some research that you have done. Also in chemistry, when they ask you to define respiration, in cells is a crucial part of the answer. I can't tell you how many times I haven't included it and then lost a mark. So just include it, it's very important. So that was aerobic respiration. Now the second type is anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration, it gives itself away. It is respiration in the absence of oxygen. So this may not make complete sense to you, but basically when there is less oxygen, insufficient oxygen, cells tend to respire without them because the process has to go on. So when you are exercising, you're undertaking vigorous activity, your muscles need more oxygen, and sometimes it is difficult for the body to produce enough, to move fast enough, for the heart to pump blood fast enough. So the muscle cells start respiring anaerobically where they produce lactic acid. So for this, the equation is glucose to lactic acid. That's all you need to remember. There is no other byproduct, and that is anaerobic respiration in muscle cells. The second type of anaerobic respiration is very important. It happens in yeast cells. Yeast is a type of fungi. It belongs to the fungus kingdom. And that is when glucose is converted to carbon dioxide and ethanol. All these equations will be given to you later in the respiration chapter, so do not worry. I will include all of them, balanced, not balanced, words, everything. You just need to learn them and understand your concepts. As a student, I never really mugged up bio. I used to read the textbook many times and understand what the words meant. If you do that, trust me, you will be fine. Okay, so yeast produces carbon dioxide and ethanol, and this usually happens in fermenters, which will also be taught to you later, but you just need to know this for now, okay? So aerobic respiration happens in the presence of oxygen, anaerobic is without oxygen, and aerobic respiration produces more energy than anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration produces about 2,830 kilojoules of energy, whereas anaerobic respiration produces 118 kilojoules of energy. So you do the math, you know which one's more, and that's all you need to know. Very often they ask you which one's more energy efficient, and aerobic is your answer. So you just need to remember these things. And also, respiration comes in MCQs a lot, where they ask you the equation for anaerobic respiration in muscle cells. So you will need to pick the glucose to lactic acid. They confuse you and write lactic acid plus carbon dioxide and all of that. Don't worry about it. It's just simply glucose to lactic acid. Okay? So let's move on. Sensitivity. Now, this definition is very important. I have seen it over and over in exam papers, recent ones as well. So, yeah, so sensitivity is the ability of an organism to detect and sense stimuli in its external and internal environment and coordinate an appropriate response to it. This question very well can come for 3 marks because there are three distinct parts of the answer that you can include, and do not forget it, please, because you shouldn't lose marks in a definition. That's just sad, okay? So if you want me to break this down, so detect and sense stimuli. So sensitivity, you definitely correlate that to your sense organs. That is your eyes, nose, tongue, skin, and eyes, nose, tongue, and ears, sorry, and your ears. So you need to, so when you feel something that's hot, your sense organ is your skin and the stimuli is what you've been touching. So this stimuli is basically a change in your internal or external environment. So if you suddenly touch up the pointy edge of a pin, you feel the pressure, that's a stimulus. So your detects stimuli in your external and internal environment, And the main point of sensitivity is to coordinate a response to it. So that's an essential part of your answer. You cannot leave that out. It's very easy to like leave it out because it's like the last part of the answer, and by the time you've been writing it, by the time you've been learning it, you kind of forget it, but don't do it. Don't do it with this one. So this is pretty similar to the examples for movement. So one is a plant turning to face the sun, that is sensitivity because it can sense the light direction, the ray of light, and so it turns to face the ray of light. So that is sensitivity. The second, and I will explain it in further detail. There's a whole topic called phototropism and gravitropism in chapter 14, which I will explain later. The second example is a Venus flytrap detecting an insect. So that is when it detects an insect, it closes. So the stimulus is detecting the insect, closing is the movement. So that is how they club these two in an MCQ. It comes very often, trust me. And the third one is an animal detecting its prey. So very often predators camouflage themselves to hide themselves from their prey so they can pounce. So that is sensitivity because it's detecting its prey. And very often when prey detects predators like a skunk, it releases odor to scare them away. These are fairly easy examples. Trust me, bio MCQ, you should get 40 on 40. It is not hard at all. Okay, let's move on. This spoke for itself. So if you have any questions, email me, okay? Okay, growth. Growth is also easy to understand, but the explanation is where kids go wrong. So growth, okay, so you get 1 mark for mentioning permanent, but one word you get a mark. So do not waste it. So growth is a permanent increase in the size and dry mass of an organism due to an increase in the cell number or cell size or both. So this has come for 3 marks in the past. So permanent increase, size and dry mass, cell number or cell size or both. You include these, you get your 3 marks. It's as easy as that. So growth is usually brought about by mitosis of cells. Okay, so mitosis is basically the division of cells, which you will learn later. You don't have to worry about it now. But I'd say it's important to mention mitosis in your answer because you get a mark for that as well. And it is a key word. All these definitions and terms are key words in your answers. And if you mention a key word, you get the same mark as you would for writing a whole bunch of words explaining it. So don't waste time. Just mention a keyword and move on. Okay. Anyway, so examples include a seed becoming a plant, a baby becoming an adult, and a plantlet growing. So this speaks for itself as well. It's quite easy. So a seed becoming a plant. So very often kids get confused with this one. I'm not really sure why, but a seed becoming a plant is growth. Okay, because a seed when it sheds its coating and then grows due to moisture and oxygen, it grows up into a plant. That's growth. It's increasing in size, cell number, dry mass, everything. So that's growth. Okay, let's move on. Okay, before I finish growth, I have to tell you, it's important not to get confused with growth and development. Development is an increase in complexity. Growth is not. Growth is an permanent increase in size and dry mass brought about by increase in cell number or cell size or both. Just know your definitions. And the definition of development, which is an increase in complexity, comes quite often in MCQ papers. Okay, so reproduction is the process that makes more of the same organism. I've never really seen this definition that comes. It's usually the special definitions of asexual and sexual reproduction that you will learn later in chapter 16. So you don't have to worry about it now. Reproduction doesn't really, it doesn't make a grand entrance in any of your chapter 1 questions. So don't worry about it. But you need to understand there are 2 types, asexual and sexual. Asexual is brought about by mitosis or binary fission, which you will learn about later as well. This is just your first chapter, so there's not much you're going to know here related to other concepts, but I promise you we will learn all of them together. Excretion. This definition comes for 3 marks as well. It comes very often, and usually excretion questions are really long. So you have the definition first, then they ask you the function of the kidney, labeling the kidney. They previously asked people, like the students, to draw the kidney and then label it. then you give the functions of the different parts, you explain the process, then you go into dialysis. So if you know excretion, well, it's like in my textbook, it's only 3-4 pages, but a lot more weightage needs to be given to the chapter. Trust me. Okay, so excretion is the removal from organisms of substances in excess like salts and water, spent hormones and toxic waste products of metabolism, which include chemical reactions in cells, including respiration. So this definition doesn't really require much of an explanation. You just need to learn it because excretion is removing organisms that are in extra supply, superfluous, toxic waste products of metabolism. You need to just know whatever is highlighted, you need to know. And also they ask you why is excretion important. It is important to remove toxic substances because they are poisonous. These 2 points, you need to mention them. Okay, so yeah, I've already told you this. Functions of a kidney, parts of a kidney, labeling, and the diagram. I never thought that drawing was very important, but I saw it in a paper. So I advise you to like get your act together and draw the damn kidney. Okay, next. Nutrition. Okay, so nutrition is the taking in of materials for energy, growth, and development. This is pretty easy, right? Oh, I already explained to you what development is, so we don't really need to look at that right now. But you need to know what plants need and what animals need for nutrition. So plants need light, carbon dioxide, water, and ions. Ions are nitrate ions, phosphate ions, sulfates, magnesium ions. So you will learn all of their uses later, so you don't have to worry about it right now. You just need to know light, carbon dioxide, water, and ions for plants. And for animals, you will need to, they need organic compounds, ions, and water. Okay, so that was that. Okay, so with this, we finished 1.1, that is the 7 life processes. Um, all living organisms have to portray them. If they don't portray them, that's it. Even one of them are not living. So viruses, for example, it's a trick question where they ask you if viruses are living or non-living. Well, they are non-living. So don't really stress about it. You just click non-living. It's an MCQ very often. And you can remember the 7 life processes using the acronym Mrs. Gren, which probably has been taught to you and has been overused. But yeah. So that's movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, nutrition. I have even put the slides in the same order for reference and help. You remember the keywords which are highlighted and you're good to go. Okay. So we finished 1.1 and now we will be doing 1.2. Okay, so now we will be doing 1.2. That is the concept and use of the system. Again, really easy. You just need to be able to state that organisms can be classified into groups based on the features they share. You just need to be able to state that. Groups based on features they share. That's it. Okay, so classification helps. These are 3 pointers which I've never really seen in any past paper or any of my mock papers, but I still always remember these 3. I don't know why, they just stuck in my head, and I think you should too, because you never know what Cambridge will throw your way. So one is that they reflect evolutionary relationships, which we will understand why later. They identify organisms. Obviously, you classify them, you identify them. And they identify organisms on the verge of extinction. So you see which genes, which alleles are getting opted out of the population, which animals are becoming extinct, which groups of classification are becoming smaller due to endangerment, predation, hunting, etc. You know which ones are on the verge of extinction. That was easy, right? Okay. So means of classification. So classification is based on morphology and anatomy. Okay, so now these 2, I never thought they were important until they came over and over in a series of papers that I just happened to come across. So morphology is the study of the outward appearance of an organism, and anatomy is the study of the internal appearance of an organism. You just remember these 2 definitions. They're also in my textbook, so they should be in yours, whichever you're using. Also, there was this paper once that said it was, I think, 2018, October, November, or something, I don't know, where they showed a spider and they said one way that the spider is categorized or classified is based on its morphology. What is the other way? And that's when I felt like a pro because I remembered it was anatomy. So you just have to remember morphological features, anatomical features, and then there's obviously DNA, which is accepted and it is a more accurate means of classifying anyways. So you can write that, but usually morphology and anatomy go together. They expect you to know that. So the sequence of bases and in DNA and the sequence of amino acids in proteins is always unique based on organisms, different features and species. So that is how they have classified organisms, and you should know that as well. Okay, yeah, so when we're back. So it's always unique, and that is how they help you classify. Organisms that share a more recent ancestor are more closely related and have base sequences in DNA that are more similar than those that share a distinct ancestor. Okay, so this sounds really convoluted, but I'll break it down for you. So usually you have a sequence of bases in DNA, and you have nucleotides as well. So there are four, that is A, T, G, and C. So I'm sure this all sounds really complex now, but I promise you it's really easy when we come to it later in chapter 17 and everything. But so basically, if an organism has the code A, T, C, G, C, A, okay, and another organism has the code A, T, C, forgive my handwriting, I'm so sorry, G, A, A. They are closely related because they have the same code except one set. And if an organism, another organism has the code ATC, or they have, sorry, AGCTAG, you know that they're not related at all because the base sequence is completely different. You get that? So organisms that share a more recent ancestor are more closely related. So these two would probably share a more recent ancestor. And these two were probably close at one time, but they're not anymore. So the last ancestor was related millions of years ago. It's a distant ancestor. So this question has come in a May-June 2020 paper where it was about cats, and they gave the sequence of bases for different cats, and we had to decipher which ones were closely related and which ones were from where, based on the sequences of those in different countries. But it wasn't that hard, trust me. Okay. So now we have means of classification. Classification is brought about by the binomial system, which is an internationally agreed system in which the scientific name of an organism comprises two parts, its genus and species, respectively. So this is also pretty easy. You just need to know the definition of the binomial system. So internationally agreed system, scientific name of organism, two parts, genus and species. Always mention them in that order, genus and species. If you're unsure of which order it is, just remember alphabetically G comes first and S comes next. So it's genus and species. G for genus, S for species. So you remember the definition, 2-3 marks, you get them. So a species, this comes for around 2 marks. It is a group of organisms with similar characteristics that reproduce to produce fertile offspring. Fertile is a key word here. If you don't get that, you don't get it right at all. Similar characteristics is not really seen in your textbooks, but I have seen them in a few mark schemes. So you can mention this whole sentence and you will surely get your mark. Yeah, so the third point, if you read it, organisms have to have the same genus first to have the most features in common. I've made this mistake before. So in MCQs, they'll probably give you a series of 6 organisms with scientific names, and they'll tell you which two organisms have the most features in common. So what I usually used to do is first I used to select the 2 organisms which had the same species and put them together but different genuses, but that's not right. You need to select the organisms that have the same genus first, and then the species is secondary, because if you don't have the same genus, because genus is a broader category than species, so if you don't have the same genus, you just don't have anything in common as such. It's just that the species is in common. So you need to first click on the option that has the same genus first and then species. So yeah, okay. Also, when you're writing the scientific name of an organism, the first letter of the genus is caps lock, everything else is small. So you always write it like this. If the species name is genus species, this is how you write it. Genus and then small species. This comes in MCQs as well. Don't lose your mark here. Every mark in an MCQ is important because MCQs push you up in bio. Next, 1.3. That's 1.3 of 1.4. We're coming close. Features of an organism. So this is straightforward. All living organisms have a cytoplasm, cell membrane, DNA as genetic material. Ribosomes for protein synthesis. So protein synthesis is basically the building up of protein molecules. So ribosomes are structures that are present on endoplasmic reticulum, which you will learn about in the next chapter, that assemble amino acids that are the basic units of proteins to make chains of proteins. And then the last is enzymes for respiration. Without enzymes, well, we wouldn't be here because every process in our body would happen too slowly and inadequately. So you just need to know this, and everything from here you need to memorize. So this I can't really help you with, but just I'm telling you, if you memorize these, you're sorted. Okay, so plants and animals. This table has come a million times in MCQs. I cannot stress on it enough. So you need to know that plants have a cell membrane, a cell wall, a cytoplasm, nucleus, chloroplast, and vacuole. So the next chapter I will also show you the structure of a plant cell. So over there you will be able to gauge how it works and what is what and the functions of everything. So don't worry. And an animal cell has everything but a cell wall, no cell wall. So this is a trick question. They ask you how many, so they'll show you a group of liver cells, which are animal cells essentially, and they'll say how many cell walls can you spot, and a lot of kids count the liver cells and then write if there are three cell walls, but it's a trick question. Animal cells have no cell walls, so you put zero straight away. It's as simple as that. And they don't have chloroplasts because they don't need chlorophyll, they don't undertake photosynthesis. Animals depend on other animals and organisms for nutrition, as said before, organic compounds. And a vacuole. Animal cells do not have a vacuole. Do not get confused. You just click no. Memorize this table. You're good to go. Okay, so the 5 kingdoms of classification. I personally did not like this topic, but well, here we are. So we have the animal kingdom, which you would know very well because you've probably been doing this all your life. The plant kingdom, which will have a few different terms: fungus, prokaryote, and protoctist, which sound like huge keywords, but trust me, they're really easy. Just have to memorize these points and you're good, you're sorted. Okay, so the animal kingdom, so you have the vertebrates and the arthropoda. Now remember, when you're writing the word arthropoda, A is capital. When you're writing arthropoda, if you want to write arthropod in your paper, like if they ask you which um what group do crustaceans, arachnids, insects, and myriapods belong to? That is when you write if you want to write arthropod, you write with small a. RTH. So the same spelling. Arthro. And if you want to write arthropoda, if you want to write a capital A, you put the A at the end. It's essential and you'll not get your mark if you don't follow this. So just remember, it's written in mark schemes and they highlight the capital A in mark schemes. So I was very surprised first because I didn't know this thing existed, but do it because trust me, it'll help you, and arthropods are very commonly asked questions. Okay, so vertebrates, you have fish, amphibian, birds, reptiles, mammals, which you should know by now. If you don't, no problem, learn it. And for arthropod, you have crustaceans, arachnids, insects, myriapods. Okay, now the most common features of arthropods are exoskeleton, jointed legs, segmented bodies, and flexible joints to allow movement. So these four usually are present in every group of arthropods, that is crustaceans, arachnids, insects, and myriapods. But they'll ask you in more specific detail, like how many legs, what kind of body. So you should know that. But generally, they ask you as well, um, what are um, what are 2 features of arthropods? You write jointed leg, segmented body, you get your 2 marks. They usually ask you in bullet points, like a list. So you just do that and you're good to go. Okay? Don't worry about it. Next, vertebrates. So we're going to start with the vertebrates. You have fish. This is also pretty easy. You know what a fish is. It's cold-blooded, which is a concept which is poikilothermic in biology terms. Um, this is how you spell it. I should have probably included it, but poikilothermic, which is essentially a disadvantage to the poor fish because they're not able to regulate their temperature and keep it fixed within set limits. It changes according to the environment, so it's very easy for them to die. Lizards are poikilothermic as well. Kilothermic, you remember this word? It's a keyword. There you go, keyword. Boom, you get your mark. Yay. So they're cold-blooded as they have smooth, streamlined bodies. And when I say smooth, I mean it's smooth. It's like the surface is smooth, the edge. So this is smooth. The concept in bio, smooth is like this and jagged is like this. So they probably ask you this for leaves, but let's not get into that right now. Okay, so smooth and streamlined bodies. They have external fertilization, which means they lay eggs, which are then fertilized. They have filamentous gills protected by a bony plate. I've never really seen anything to do with the operculum in past year papers or anything, but I like to remember it because I liked the word. Yeah, and they have scales and fins. This picture is the picture of a fish. You don't really need to know this, but you should be familiar with the terms like there's the pectoral fin, the pelvic, anal, caudal, streamlined body covered in scales, the dorsal fin, and here there's the bony plate that protects the filamentous fins. So you don't need to know like the names of the fins, but actually I've seen this question before where they show you a picture of the fish, they label the fins and they say construct a key that helps you identify which fish it is. It was a series of fish with different fins. So, a rounded caudal fin, which would probably be like this, or a long pelvic fin. You need to be just familiar with the terms, and you're good to go. And yeah, that's your fish. Don't worry about it. Then you have vertebrates, amphibia, which is once again you should know this cold-blooded poikilothermic. External fertilization like fish. They have lungs and moist skin for respiration. So essentially they live on land and water. So a few of them have gills. It keeps changing. And they have lungs as well because they can breathe on land and on water. They have four limbs and they have webbed feet. So to increase the surface area to enable them to paddle or swim in the water. So webbed feet is essentially like this, you know like if these are actually your toes, these lines, the outer surface is skin which is in between the toes to increase the surface area and enable them to swim. It's as simple as that. So an example is the toad of frog. Here you have moist skin used for gas exchange. You have nostrils leading to lungs which are also used for gas exchange, and usually when they're small they have gills. You have four limbs with hind limbs webbed for walking and swimming, and you have a wide mouth. That's pretty much it. Reptiles, you have scaly skin, dry scales to prevent water loss. Land living, because they only live on land, no water. They have a tough shell because when they um, when they lay eggs, they have a tough shell. So after fertilization, they lay eggs and then they have a tough shell to protect the offspring. And they have four limbs with five toes each. That's like us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4 limbs. And internal fertilization. Yeah, this is just a summary. Limbs. Okay, this is like an extra point, but you don't really, I mean, that's just an extra point. Okay, then you have vertebrates, which are birds. They have feathers, beak, internal fertilization, powerful wing muscles, four wings, and wings. I just repeated that point. So warm-blooded. Now this is a concept which is what they are called as homeothermic. This is a weird spelling. This is basically warm-blooded, which we are as well. Regulate body temperature. Yeah, not seen this in many papers, but know the features and you're good to go. This is just a summary. You can go through this. I will put the PPT down below as well. Don't worry. Vertebrates, mammals. So mammals, we are mammals. We are warm blood. We are homeothermic. We have internal fertilization where sexual intercourse takes place. There's the presence of hair. Hair is present everywhere on your skin. The young suckle on milk. There are mammary glands, sweat glands. You have the external ear, which is also called as a pinnae, which has a pinnae. The ear is external, which means it's a pinnae. You have the production of live young. Like we don't lay eggs after fertilization. We produce the child. And an important thing, whales and bats are mammals. So if they ask you, they show you a picture of a whale and they say which group does it belong to, do not say fish. It's a trick question. Same with bat. Do not say bird. It's a trick question. They're mammals. Yeah, this is an example of a mammal. And we're getting to arthropoda. So we have Crustacea. So same, pretty much the same features as arthropods: jointed legs, exoskeleton, compound eyes, jointed limbs on each body segment. So if there are 5 body segments, they have 5 pairs of legs. So usually 5 or more pairs of legs, which means 5 or more pairs of body segments, and they have 2 pairs of antennae. This is an example. You can go through this. You can see there's a jointed leg here. The antennae, compound eyes, and the exoskeleton. Okay, insects. Insects, this is also pretty easy because everyone knows what an insect is. There are 3 pairs of legs, body divided into head, thorax, and abdomen. 3 body parts. You should mention this when they ask you the characteristics of insects. 1 pair of antennae, compound eyes, 2 pairs of legs. No, they have 3 pairs of legs. Okay, this was a mistake. They have 3 pairs of legs, as mentioned here. Segmented bodies and exoskeleton. So usually they show you 4 species and they say identify which is insects. You should understand that when there are 3 pairs of legs, it's an insect straight away. Okay, so that was insects. And this is your summary again. You learned this, you're good. Arachnids. So we have arachnids are spiders. An example is spider. So you have the body divided into a body and a cephalothorax. You mentioned this, you get your mark. I've not really seen it in the answer keys. They usually write body divided into 2 segments. But if you really want to show off your knowledge and prove to the examiner that you know your stuff, you mention the key term. They have 4 pairs of limbs, several pairs of simple eyes, not compound eyes, and they have a chelicerae for biting and poisoning prey. That is just an adaptation. So this is an arachnid. You learn this, you're good to go. I'm sorry I keep saying good to go. It's just a thing, I guess. So you have your myriapods. So an example is your millipede or centipede. There are several body segments. You can see they have long body with like these small little segments, several of them. They have simple eyes and they have a pair of legs present on each body segment. So that is a lot of legs. So you write that. It's very important to write that, many legs. And you write several body segments. You don't write many or you don't give a number. You just write several. And they have a head as well, as you've seen, and they have 1 pair of antennae. This is an example. So this is the head. These are the many segments, a pair of legs on each segment. That's a centipede. Okay, now we've gone to the next kingdom, the fungus. So they are made of thread-like hyphae, which we will learn later as well. There are nuclei distributed throughout the cytoplasm and the hypha. An example is yeast, which is used for anaerobic respiration. They may be parasitic, where they feed off of plants. They form structures on trees, the barks of trees, and they release enzymes inside the tree, and they absorb nutrients from the tree and thus slowly kill it. Yeah, it's sad. So we learn more later about fungus. This is an example. You have the mycelium, which is the main body. You have gills, which have spores. You'll learn about this later, don't worry. We'll do it again in asexual reproduction. Then we have the prokaryote kingdom, which is basically for bacteria and blue-green algae. They are single cell, they have no nucleus, they have loops of DNA, which is not organized in the nucleus. They have plasmids, and so bacteria have a flagella, which is basically like a whip-like structure which they lash to like move forward. It's for movement. They have a cell wall and cell membrane. So when they ask you which two structures are present in bacteria, you can write cell wall, cell membrane, you get 2 marks. That easy. Some of them, some being the keyword, have a slant capsule and a cytoplasm containing granules of glycogen and lipids. They have no mitochondria or chloroplast. They have smaller ribosomes and they reproduce by binary fission, which is basically brought about by mitosis, which you will learn about later. This is an example. So here you have plasmids, which are like loops of DNA. You have food granule, which is made of lipids and glycogen. You have the membrane, the cell wall, the small ribosomes, cytoplasm, and the flagella. Those are the main structures that you need to know. So product is not very important, but then again, never say never. So unicellular plants are protophyta and unicellular animals are protozoa. You just need to remember these. Examples of Protoctist are Euglena, Amoeba, Paramecium, etc. They may have a cilia or a flagella for movement. Example is Amoeba here. This is the food vacuole, nucleus. It's just one cell and you have a contractile vacuole, which you will learn about later in chapter 3. I don't want to complicate stuff for you all now. Okay, so now we're down to plants. So there are 2 types. You have the ferns and the flowering plants. The flowering plants are easy, so let's get done with that now. So you have monocotyledons and dicotyledons. So you just need to remember this table, and it's done. Your work is done. So the leaf shape for monocotyledons is long and narrow, so that will essentially be like this. Whereas for dicotyledons is broad, like that. The leaf veins are parallel for monocotyledons, which means they're all like this, or like this, just completely straight. And they're branching in dicotyledons, which means they are like this. You've probably seen these before, but these are the key terms to describe it. Cotyledons, I will explain this in another video because I don't want to go on for too long. So you have 1 cotyledon in monocots and 2 cotyledons in dicots. Your groups of flowers are in 3s in monocots and 5s in dicots. So the flowers are basically like, if this is a flower, then it'll probably have 3 in a monocot. And the same thing for 5 in a dicot. You remember this and you're good to go. Ferns, so they have stems that grow underground, which are called rhizomes. Roots grow from these stems, so they're called adventitious roots. They have water conducting tubes and water conducting tubes and sieve tubes that are close to the xylem and phloem in flowering plants. So they are called vascular plants. Most leaf cells are similar to plant leaf cells and they reproduce via sporangia. That was that. You remember this. You just need to mug up. This chapter has a lot of memorizing. Okay, viruses. So they are non-living. First main thing, they use material from the host cell to divide. They have a central core of RNA or DNA. RNA is ribonucleic acid, DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid, and we have DNA. And there's the presence of a protein code, where these 2 are very important. They are also mentioned in the syllabus, so you should know them. This is an example of your virus, which essentially captures what IGCSE wants you to know. Now dichotomy is key. Okay, so let's do this together. So basically they'll show you, this is a past paper question, they'll show you the picture of an organism and you need to identify it. So the image below shows a leaf from a plant. So identify the plant to which the leaf belongs using the dichotomous key shown below. So leaves. So leaf in more than one piece or leaf in one piece. So here we can see the leaf is in more than one piece. So we go for this branch. Then it says leaf has a smooth edge or leaf has a jagged edge. I already told this to you before. You can see the edge is smooth. So your answer is A, F Americana. It's as simple as that. Okay, next, mollusks. This is not really in our syllabus, but I've seen it in so many past paper questions. And if you want to attempt past papers and not have to look into the mark scheme or give yourself less marks, just know this for now. It's a small concept, that's it. So mollusks, so they have a soft body, an unsegmented body, a mantle, a slimy body, and a hydrostatic skeleton. You just know these, they're water repellent basically. You know these and you're good to go for your past paper questions, the really old ones. Okay, this is a extended concept. We always ask this. So why must you protect an organism? So it encourages biodiversity. It maintains food chains and food webs, and it prevents extinction. You know, these 3 points are good to go. It'll also, this concept comes in the last chapter, so don't worry. So now the amami, rabbit, and kipunji are endangered organisms. So in a really old paper, they are asked, name another organism on the verge of extinction, and I didn't know what to name because you don't know the scientific names or whatever. But in the mark scheme, they're given a link, and they said any animal which is red zoned in this link can be named. So I went to the link and I found two animals that have easy names relatively, and I put them down here. So I use these two as well. So you can use them. Just remember them and don't worry. So that was that. I hope this session helped you guys. Please subscribe to my channel, CakeWalk Cambridge. Hit that like button and subscribe button, and let's get through IGCSE together. If you have any queries, please email me. I'm putting my email down below. I will upload every PPT and all my notes. So don't worry. All the best.